WECU 1570 AM and W298BX 107.5 FM, Winterville, North Carolina.
Motivations with Glenn.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Awesome Radio and the Awesome Radio Network, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU, Christian Inspiration for the Family and Ministry Teaching for Practical Christian Living. You are tuned into the Glenn Johnson Show, Motivations with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams. This is part 2 of our topic, domestic violence. We also anticipate a call in today from Sergeant Natalie Perez Foliva, I believe her last name is. I sure hope I got that correct, but I just refer to her as Sergeant Natalie. I met her last week at Beaufort Community College. So she's a police officer at Beaufort Community College. We're expecting her to call in today with some topics, tips for domestic violence. And while we wait for that call, when she do call in, we're not going to keep her long because she is a supervisor and she's on duty. So when she does call in, we're not going to keep her long. So ladies and gentlemen, let's begin the topic with my co-host, Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams.
Hey, Dr. Glenn, and to our listening audience on today, we are glad to be here and with a connecting continuation of our topic from last week where we talked about child abuse. And we know closely connected to child abuse is often domestic violence in other places in the home. And so we want to connect these two topics because children that are in homes that have domestic violence are often also the children of child abuse as well.
I'm sorry, Jackie. Wait a minute. We have a caller calling. Let me see.
Yes, sir. This is Sergeant Natalie Bolivar from Beaufort County Community College.
I'm so glad you pronounced your name, but I knew I got it wrong.
You did great. You did great. I was listening. You did excellent.
Thank you very much, Sarge. I know you have some information for us, and like I was telling my co-host and our listening audience, we're not going to keep you long because we know you're a supervisor at the Beaufort Community College Police Department, so we know you're on duty and have business to take care of. So,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I was just about to mention before you called, when I was talking to you, you mentioned there was another aspect of domestic violence that people kind of like forget about, and that is it's just not male on female. It could be female on male. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Most definitely. I don't think any crime has gender, age, or race specific. I mean, I've seen men that were just as easily intimidated by a female and abused by females, just as much as, I've seen females that were abused by men. Sometimes the abuse isn't always physical. Sometimes it is, because there's a lot of men, I feel, who are afraid to speak out about being slapped. They don't think maybe that a slap on the back of the head or, a pop on the face is abuse, but it is. I truly, growing up and I'll give you guys a little bit of background on me. My family is immigrants to the United States of America. My parents were the first ones born here in America, and my grandparents were all immigrants, Italian and Puerto Rican. So the way they were raised, my parents were raised, was very much, if you said anything to your mother or your father, being slapped in the mouth was absolutely nothing. Of course, I never saw my parents. My father and mother would never dare strike each other. But I think some people that were raised watching their, siblings or themselves even being hit in their mind, it becomes almost like a natural reaction to handling, whether it's trauma, aggression, anger, whatever. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It doesn't mean it's right, but in their mind, that's their first go-to. And I think some young men especially think, their grandma smacks them in the back of their head. I've been hit like this before. There's nothing to it. And they don't see that somebody could potentially, that's where it starts.
That is
If
correct.
it's not corrected, it'll just continue.
Yeah.
Just continue.
That's right. If it's not connected, it just continue. And my other question to you is, so we talk about the man and the female, but domestic violence could be considered like a brother and sister or two cousins involved in an altercation. Is that considered domestic violence?
Yes, sir. The domestic violence is titled as anyone that you live with or cohabitate with. So it could be a family member. There's people who are elderly who are abused by their children, whether it's financial, physical, or emotional. Maybe they're not in the correct mental status. I've seen that before as well, where you have somebody who can't make decisions for themselves, so they rely on a caretaker, and the caretaker, while they may do some things correctly for that individual, that their mother, their grandmother, they also are financially abusing that person.
Right. We have 4 minutes to go before we go to our first break. So my other question to you is, and I'll leave you 3 minutes. My other question to you would be, is it still law that if an officer arrives on the scene of a domestic violence, if there's anybody with physical injuries, then somebody has to be arrested?
So the way we teach our students in BLET here at the college is, first, you have to assess the situation, because we've also seen incidents where somebody has been injured or has an injury, but there's a possibility that could be self-inflicted. So the officers will always, we separate the parties. Our job is to separate the parties and start working on what we believe. Now, if I come up on a scene and there's somebody laying there, they've obviously, been beaten in the face. Yes, somebody's going to jail, there's obvious. But if they are struck at any point in time while I'm sitting there, it could even be as simple as that you and I were having an argument in the front yard, and the officer pulls up on the scene, and you or I, either one, throws the keys to the vehicle and hits the other person. So say I take my car keys and I throw them and I hit you in the chest, technically that is assault. So that is an arrestable offense right there at that point. And I've witnessed it. So if I've witnessed it, I'm taking somebody with me.
Yeah,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, because if a police officer witnesses, then absolutely somebody has to be arrested, right?
And yes, sir. And I will say this too, for anyone who has a domestic violence protection order, please know that in the domestic violence protection order, if it is violated, it says shall arrest. That means the officer can't be all buddy-buddy with that person. Be like, look, man, I understand she told you to come get your stuff and you shouldn't be up here. Just go ahead and get your stuff and leave. No, it says we will arrest them. Shall means will. So if somebody violates a domestic violence protection order, there will be consequences. Now, there's a twofold to that. If you are the other party and you take out a DVPO and you're constantly getting back with this person or causing them to feel like they are safe. A lot of judges will not have pity for you if you are trying to get them arrested. You know what I mean? There are some people who know, hey, I don't want to deal with my ex-husband this weekend. If I call him up here, it's the weekend, he'll be locked up for 72 hours if he violates the CDC.
Right.
And I can do what I want at the home.
That's right. And we are down to our final 1 minute of the first segment. I'm going to ask my co-host if she want to respond to anything at this time.
Dr. Glenn, I think she's covered everything very well, but I did have one question for her, as she mentioned financial abuse, because that's one of the abuses that I think we don't often hear that much about as far as in domestic situations. Are there actually charges that can be pressed, like when a person, you find out that someone has financially abused? And we will answer that question or allow you to answer that question right after this break. So will you hang on with us and come back with us?
Sure.
We have an interesting question right on the board. This is Awesome Radio. Dr. Glenn.
And I'm going to ask everybody if they can stay tuned in. We're going to have Sergeant stay on with us until we come back from the break. But like I said, if she has to go, we do understand that, and we won't keep her long. So, ladies and gentlemen, keep it locked right here to the Glenn Johnson Show, Motivations with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams, here on Awesome Radio, WECU, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, Winterville, North Carolina. We'll be back in a moment after this brief break.
My name is Jayla, and you're to see to my papa, Glenn Johnson, on the radio.
From the Pacific Justice Institute, this is The Legal Edge, defending your rights as a Christian, a parent, and a citizen. Here's Brad Dacus.
For over 2 decades, Pacific Justice Institute has been dedicated to providing people of faith with exceptional legal support when their religious freedom is threatened. Currently, PJI is seeking attorneys or individuals with paralegal experience to join our committed legal team positioned nationwide. Our goal, folks, is to defend the religious freedoms of those who are under attack and unable to defend themselves. Learn more about joining our team and apply today by submitting your resume and cover letter on pji.org.
PJI provides legal representation without charge. Get exclusive email updates by registering for The Legal Insider at pji.org.
Attention, powerful women. Unleash your inner boss and walk into your blessings. Mark your calendars because Nakisha Williams proudly presents the No Pain, No Gain Women Boston Blessed Up Conference 2024. Sunday, August 18th at the Greenville Convention Center. It's the Double You Can't Stop Me edition with 2 powerhouse keynote speakers. The dynamic Bishop Vance Old, Grammy and Stellar Award winner Erica Campbell. Performing live, Corinne Hawthorne. And Zacardi Cortez. Experience soul-stirring messages from Chanel Monique Lee, Deja Fullmore, and prophetess Jacqueline London. This conference will leave you forever changed. Hosted by visionary Keisha Williams and comedian Akita B. No Pain, No Gain. Women Boston Blessed Up Conference 2024, where the devil can't stop you and the blessings await. Sunday, August 18th. Doors open at 2 p.m. Show starts at 3. Vendor space available and early bird tickets for just $65 at NakishaMWilliams.com.
You're listening to Awesome Radio, WECU, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM. Christian media with the spirit of excellence.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenn Johnson Show, Motivations with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams, here on Awesome Radio, WECU, 1570 AM and 107.5 FM. My co-host, Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams, had a question for the sergeant, and I'm going to let her continue with that question and the response from the sergeant.
Yes, so my question was, as far as financial abuse, and I was asking her, what are the charges that could be filed concerning it? And also, how would you be able to help someone that you suspect is a victim of financial abuse? Because sometimes there are people that are out on the street, you know that they're getting a check somewhere and they should be getting some finances, but they don't have access to it. maybe someone else was over it and they no longer have contact with that person. They were sending it to someone's address and then they can't get it and they don't know how to, get into the system or get their funds, turned back over to themselves, and they're out and they're just in trouble because someone else is taking advantage of them financially.
And there are people like that because we see that the financial abuse aspect of it a lot with people who are, and I try to use this term correctly, diminished capacity as far as, people who, I don't like to say the word handicapped, but, handicapable, people with some type of mental disability or developmental disability, because we do have large portions of those people who become, wards of the state, but somebody else is getting a check in their name and they're not able to buy shoes and products that they need, whether it's feminine hygiene products or even new clothes, and they rely on a lot of shelters to give them assistance. So with that being said, so when I refer to like the financial aspect of the domestic violence, you see, and it is more prevalent I've seen with females. Maybe their husband won't let them work. They want them to be a housewife. So what they do is say, all the money will be in my account. I have the bank account that all the money goes into. If you need money, you have to ask me. I have to approve for it. And what that would be for an officer, if we come up and somebody says, look, I always try to find a shelter that they don't have to have any, money for, obviously. Domestic violence shelters, if you go on the North Carolina Department of Justice, the DOJ website, there's actually a link up there for domestic violence people, and it gives every county in North Carolina that has a free shelter for either sex, a number up there, and it has an emergency go button, by the way. I just want to point that out. So if somebody comes up behind you and you have to click that button to get out of the website, it's large, it's green, it's at the bottom, and it says go. It will immediately shut it down and clean it out of your browser.
Yeah.
So with that being said, when we have people that are in these situations, these officers, we take as much information down. My job is to be like a reporter. So I report everything that I see, everything that's told to me, anything that I think, might be going on. This officer noticed this. This officer noticed that. This officer was told but also saw. That way when it goes to court, there may be charges that the judge may want to bring against them. Because my most important thing is to make sure this person is safe. So as far as financial stuff, sometimes they will say, well, that's a civil matter, if they get divorced or they get separated. But a lot of times it's up to the judge what they're willing to charge. Now, with somebody who is of a diminished capacity or not able, the abuse is so much that you can tell they don't have anything. When that happens, we always try to get them in touch, with we as officers will work with our DA's office and try to speak with them about, look, this person is in this situation. Sometimes the DA's office will meet with the victim and talk with them as far as, and go ahead and say, look, we also need to charge this individual with this or that. It's really like a family of networking. We try to find, it's my job, to find as much safety for that person, but also as many available resources. And if I don't have the answers, I'm going to reach out and find somebody else. And my job, in my capacity, not everyone has that option. I do because of where I work at. My work is more counseling. I'm not always out, looking for crime, but I do have students on my campus too, if they're going through domestic violence or their child comes here, because we have high school students on this campus. Their child comes here and that child is involved in a domestic violence protection order. The moment that protection order hits my office, I go ahead, I look up the individual that's named on it, get a picture of them, so I know if this person's just walking through this campus, they don't have a right to be here for this child's safety, or this individual's safety. So really, a lot of times, the results you're going to get are from the officers that work in your area and how much you as a victim are willing to offer them as far as information goes as well.
That's right.
And that is a really big thing. It is hard. A lot of people don't understand. And I really did not understand domestic violence until I experienced some things when I was younger myself, which gave me a great respect for the way the system works and having to understand it. But it also gave me the ability to talk to people that are going through it. Like, you need to understand some of this stuff will take a little bit of time, but here's what we can do immediately. I need to stress to you, this is how serious this is. It will not get better. If you want to pray for your spouse or your significant other, that's fine. I will pray with you. I don't have a problem doing that. But right now, we need to get you someplace safe because this person has the potential to hurt you. Love is not pain. Love is not pain. God did not say that we would suffer because He loves us.
That's right.
And I don't believe that God wants us to be hurt. God doesn't want us to suffer. If He wanted us to suffer, He would not let Jesus die for our sins.
Amen.
And take all of our sins.
What a great way to put that. And I just want to say before we go to the break, in 3 minutes, that was a great question by Apostle Williams, and that was a great response by the Sarge. That was very articulative. I'm going to ask the Sarge a question, but it's going to be, I'm probably going to answer my question with the question, and that is domestic violence, IPV, intimate partner violence, is all that stuff falls under domestic violence. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's since when they allowed for same-sex marriages in North Carolina, even you used to be able to only have a no contact order if you were in a same-sex relationship, and now you're able to get what we call a 50B, which is a domestic violence protection order. If you cohabitate with the person, or if you've ever been married to the person, or if you share a child with the person, which all these things also fall for, straight couples as well. But even if you were just in a relationship with somebody, you're dating somebody. Sometimes I tell people, I was like, look for the warning signs. There are flags, because the behaviors that we as officers look for when it comes to domestic violence. If I show up on the scene and the individual tells me, hey, he's upset because today's a bad day, I burned the pizza or what have you, but I'm looking around and I might not see any physical violence, but I see that there's psychological violence. When I walk in, the individual tells me, if you want to talk to her or him, that's fine. They're stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. Or, the person says, I love you, and the other person's like, you love anything. You can see these things, these signs. If you find out when you're talking to the person, hey, they are withholding credit cards or cash or any type of financial, ability for this person to leave the house, it's all those things are signs for us as officers, like there is something going on here, and I'm going to make notes. It's going to be in the CAD system that I saw these things. So when it pulls up, if any other officer comes behind me on the next shift, they're going to be able to see, hey, there was a problem here. This officer saw that. Even if there isn't anything to report, or necessarily do right away, I'm going to document it so when I do have to go to court, if I do, I pray to God not, I can make sure that this person, I've given them my full service. I've done my very best to make sure that I've painted a picture that they may not, head trauma, you forget about them. They may not remember, they may not want to talk.
Sarge, could you hold on a second? We gotta do this spill before we go to the break. Then we'll be back with our final 30 minutes. If Sarge wants to hang in there with us, please do so. We have another question for you. This is Awesome Radio. Back in a moment, ladies and gentlemen.
The Northern Pitt County Improvement Association will be hosting a community event entitled Building a Healthier Pitt County Together on Saturday, June 15th from 1 to 4 p.m. at their NPCIA building at 2197 Old River Road in the heart of Greenville. This free event will be a fun family day where they will have free health screenings, educational and fun activities. Food vendors will be on site along with games and more. Register for free by visiting their website, npciainc.org. Again, that's Saturday, June 15th, 1 to 4 p.m. at 2197 Old River Road in Greenville. Please feel free to visit their website to find out more information about this event. Hope to see you there.
You're listening to the Anchorberg Minute.
The Lord knows us, and his desire for us is to know him. Instead of being disappointed at our brokenness, he is compassionate, gracious, slow to anger, and abounds in loving kindness. Instead of pushing us away, God the Father draws us close through his Son's cross. Instead of shame, he has removed our transgressions as far as the east is from the west. How can we ever forget his benefits of forgiveness, healing, death's rescue, and life's satisfaction? What do we say in response to such undeserved gifts? From the deepest part of our being, we declare, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget none of his benefits."
For additional resources or to view our TV program, log on to jashow.org. That's jashow.org.
You're listening to Awesome Radio, WECU 107.5 FM, 1570 AM. Christian media with the spirit of excellence.
We're back. You're listening to The Glenn Johnson Show. You can reach Glenn at glennjohnsonshow@gmail.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivations with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams here on Awesome Radio, 107.5 FM, 1570 AM, WECU. Apostle Williams had another question for the sergeant. I'm going to allow her to answer that question or get to that question, and then I have one for the sergeant as well.
Okay, I have one more, Sergeant Natalie. And I thought this was an appropriate question. I know we're given a lot of information about the victims and how there are certain things that are looked for concerning the victims. But I had a question about the abusers or the aggressor. And I wanted to ask you, because you have been an officer, have you seen any success stories? I mean, does it mean that once you've been an abuser, that's just what you're labeled as? Is there a bounce back? Can an abuser be rehabilitated? And if so, would you like to share a story of that with our listening audience on today? You don't have to give any names, but just tell us that there's hope or light at the end of these dark tunnels.
So, what I'm going to tell you is my story a little bit. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I was in a domestic violence relationship. And at first, I didn't think anything of it. I was very young. I was, going through college. I was actually going for criminal justice at the time. And I did not realize just how serious the situation was that I was in. And I prayed to God a lot. I thought this was just how it was going to be for the rest of my life, even though my parents, who've been married now, God bless them, since 1976. So almost, 50 years. And I never saw any type of abuse from my father towards my mother or my mother towards my father, other than, I'm sure some inappropriate words in another language. But I thought, this is it. This will be the end for me. I will just have to deal with this forever, and I'll either, die, because I did not think that I was one. I forgot that I was chosen by God. I forgot that God, I was his special child. And I also had to remember that he wants better for me. He does not want me to sit here in this abuse. He does not want me to sit here in this turmoil. And it was so hard to leave that relationship. It took a lot. And I mean, it actually took the other person telling me at one point to leave. It took him saying, I don't want you in my life anymore. And I didn't even argue. I didn't say, why, like I had plenty of times before, because a lot of times with abuse, you have people who also want to cheat, and they want to, they're using their money for them and not you. They don't make you feel special. So I used to have to think I had to work hard to earn somebody's love. It wasn't freely given. And that was not the case. So when he said leave, I left, and I never turned back. Now, today, this individual has a happy family, seems happy, and maybe maybe there was just something negative in both of our lives that we were not, bringing to each other. And I don't ever seek out to talk with this individual, but I prayed during that time I left that God would, send him somebody to love him the way he needed to be loved to fix whatever it was that was broken in him. And also myself, because truly, and it's hard. It's hard to forgive somebody who's done you wrong. That is definitely a flesh thing. That is a natural desire to not want somebody that's hurt you to do good. But I realized at a very young age that God wanted me to be happy and he wanted me to be successful. And that the only way I could do that was truly not just to forgive him, but to forgive myself for making that bad decision. And as far as I know, this individual has been very successful in life, doing well, beautiful family, and I also had to start praying, God bless this person and God bless me. And I think maybe at that time we just were immature. Maybe it was because we didn't put God first in our lives. We put the world first in our lives. We were worried about partying. We were worried about hanging out with people that we had no business hanging out with. We were not thinking about our futures at all, other than the instant gratification of today.
I think you hit the nail on the head. That instant gratification.
Yes, you have to want also. That person, the abuser, has to want to change too. They can't just sit there and think it's always you. If they don't ever look deep at themselves and see what they were doing wrong, it won't come for them. They won't be able to be fixed, because you have to acknowledge that you're wrong. I had to acknowledge I was not always the best partner in the relationship. Doesn't mean what happened to me was warranted by any means. And it's most people who are abused, it's not warranted. They do not deserve that abuse. But I had to turn inward and say, God, you are so much bigger than this, and all my pain and all my suffering and all my loss that I thought I had had. And when I finally said, okay, Lord, every time I would think about this person and how they hurt me, I would say, God bless this person and God bless me. And that was like my mantra to help get over it and get through it. And eventually, I just started thinking that way towards everyone. Every time somebody would upset me, God bless this person, God bless me. And it was just, I want to make sure that he will forgive my sins, So if I want him to forgive my sins, I have to forgive somebody else's.
Thank you so much for those words, because I think that those words are very powerful equipment to help people that are struggling with forgiveness, or when someone has done something to them, to just every time it comes to your mind to say, God bless this person and God bless me. That's a very powerful thing, is to bless those, that hurt you.
It's hard. Me and Mr. Glenn, we were talking this past week, and he was talking about how the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And you're right. The Lord you have to put God first. You have to put him before your husband. You have to put him before your wife, your child, your money. Try to set up. I think if we don't worry about small things like that and let him take care of us, we won't have so much worry. We won't have so much fretting. And also we have to listen, though. Even with all of that, I told him, I said, my favorite part of that verse follows directly behind it, where it says, he makes me lie down. It doesn't say he asks me. It doesn't say he begs me. It says he makes me. He forces me. Sometimes God will force us to slow down, whether we want to.
He make you lie down in that green pasture.
That's right. But it also does say, in there, it talks about the shepherd's staff and the rod, his rod and his staff comfort me. And I will tell you this. It does say in the Bible as well that the Lord will take care of your problems. The revenge is on him. It's not for us. He decides what's just punishment. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just not giving someone all the blessings they deserve. They're still blessed. They just don't get all the blessings. And I tell people all the time, that rod was meant to comfort you, guide you, keep you on the right path. But also, God's not afraid to reach over and smack a wolf here and there too. We have to let him do that. We can't seek out to create the evil or the darkness. If you want to be that city on a hill, if you want to be that light to the world, you can't have any darkness in you.
Oh,
It's the
yes.
complete opposite.
Oh, yes. My mother once said to me, she said, and as you just spoke there, God is, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. That's what the Bible says. And it's up
Mm-hmm.
to him. And I remember saying one time, I forgive him, I forgive him, and I forgive him, and I forgive him. And I remember my dear mother said to me, she said, what you forgive versus what God is holding is two different things. So we don't get to
Mm-hmm.
decide, even with our forgiveness. God is the one that decides what the consequences or if there's going to be any.
And
That's right. That's right.
I'm sorry. I just realized Sarge has stayed on with us practically for the entire hour, so I'm going to change my show format and include her on there as a guest to make sure all that we're doing this thing properly. Since our guest, Mr. Calvin Boss Hill, couldn't be here today, so I'm glad Sarge was able to call in and stay with us thus far. I'm going to have another question for Sarge when we come back from this next break. Then we'll be down to our final 20 minutes. So if you all can stick and stay with us, including Sarge, we would appreciate it. And once again, keep it locked right here to Austin Radio, WECU 107.5 FM. Back in a moment, ladies and gentlemen.
Keep it locked right here to the Glenn Johnson Show.
Do you have questions about God's character? What he's like? Is he angry? Can he be trusted? Does he really love me? When you're struggling with who God really is, understand, therefore, that the Lord your God is indeed God. He is the faithful God who keeps his covenant for 1,000 generations and lavishes his unfailing love on those who love him and obey his commands. Growing your faith with Deuteronomy 7:9.
You're listening to Awesome Radio, WECU 107.5 FM, 1570 AM. Christian media with the spirit of excellence.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivations with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams here on Awesome Radio, WECU 1570 AM and 107.5 FM. Christian media with the spirit of excellence. So my next response, and then I'm going to hand it back over to my co-host, is I'm going to ask Sarge. When she mentioned different types or different levels of orders, like a restraining order or order of protection, and some of those instances where the aggressor might appear in court, he might be ordered to stop drinking, because sometimes their drinking situation might have escalated and got them into that domestic dispute or domestic violence. So would an individual also face a court order from a judge say you can no longer drink or stop drinking?
Oh, yes, sir. A judge can order somebody to go to rehabilitation to maybe lessen charges that are placed on them. In domestic violence, if you get into a fight with someone and you have weapons, there are weapons in the house, officers will seize those weapons, and they are not to be given back until the judge issues an order for those weapons to be given back. And it is unfortunate. I do know people in my personal life that are friends of mine who have had a spouse who wanted to try to get as much money out of it. Maybe there were some infidelity issues going on, what have you. So what the spouse did was they know that if they were to call law enforcement over to the home and say that, look, this person is doing this, that, or the other, and the officers didn't find a reason to charge this person with a domestic violence protection order, the person can still go to the courthouse and take out a domestic violence protection order or a DVPO. Now, it's temporary. That means it probably won't last more than a week. And then at that week, you have to go before a judge. Well, during that time, that person could have, like I said, all their weapons taken out of the home, guns, firearms, what have you. They could even be asked to leave the residence indefinitely until that time is up.
Absolutely.
And then the judge has the choice to either say, okay, I believe this person validly was hurting or harming or causing problems for this person, I'll extend the DVPO for a year, or I'll extend it for another month or 6 months and revisit it then. That person doesn't, even if the judge dismisses it, does not mean they get their property back. So the judge has to sign off, and that's a whole different hearing for that. But when somebody has a drinking problem and they say, look, Your Honor, I have done this, that, and the other, or even if they don't want to admit it, that judge has the right when it comes to the assault on the female, when it comes to, or the assault in general, especially if there's minor children at home, the judge can say, you need to go to a 30-day rehabilitation clinic. And they can even say whether they'll accept it or not after they've completed it. And if these people don't complete it, they may not dismiss the charge or lessen it. We don't really say dismiss, because if you're guilty of something, you're guilty of it. But that might be part of your probation. Instead of doing 30 days in prison, you have a drinking problem, they may say you can do 30 days in a clinic.
So in all actuality, as far as the being charged to go in front of a judge, there's a lot of orders that could be imposed on the person.
Yes, and it also depends on the violence of the person. If that person is not very violent, let's just say this person has never hit this person up until this point in time, okay, and this person just is drinking and loses it and slaps this person or hurts this individual, it doesn't mean they didn't do the crime, but this might not be somebody that, a year in prison would fix. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense,
that might just need to get rehabilitation for that, because truly none of us are born evil. I feel that way about animals. No animal comes out of the womb prepared to attack and kill another animal or person. Not saying it isn't instinctual. You want to protect your child from running into the parking lot, so you're going to grab their hand. You might even give them a little, pop on the rear end for not listening about playing, too close to the road. But you're not going to beat that child black and blue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In that sense. So it really just depends on all the other counterparts. That's why I say for law enforcement, it's just very important that we document everything. I'm going to document the state of the house. If the house looks filthy, you can tell this person has been wearing the same clothes. They're being forced to wear the same clothes. The other person is well-dressed, well-groomed. Those are things that I'm going to put in my report.
And Jackie was saying something about that last week, about the child abuse aspect of it. If the child is dirty, the house is ramshacked, different things like that.
There's no food.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have
now,
four.
When it comes to children, for me, when it comes to children and the elderly, that to me is, and anyone who's physically or mentally disabled, that to me is a whole nother level of, I'm going to go above and beyond. I always try to do my best, and most officers that I know always go above and beyond, but I'm definitely going to go above and beyond in my documentation, whether it's pictures, body camera footage, whatever is available. We're going to make sure that all of that is entered into evidence for that person, because nobody should be treated that way.
That's right.
That's your job. When I took on this job to protect others, I meant others. Unfortunately, sometimes, and people don't agree with it, unfortunately, sometimes we do have to protect somebody who does not appear morally to deserve it, But that's my job is to be completely biased in that, but I will document everything out of it,
And we
make
are
sure everyone is safe.
Yeah, we are down to 3 minutes for this particular segment. We'll go out to break in about 2 minutes. Then we'll be back with our final 10 minutes. But before we go out, I just want to say to Sarge and to my co-hosts, and like I said, I'm going to have to change my show form document to include the Sarge as an actual phone-in guest, because he has been on with us for the entire hour. And I appreciate it. Got a lot of valuable information. So with 2 minutes ago, I'm going to give it to my co-hosts. And we still have a portion on veterans, the VA administration, and domestic violence. Jackie, you want to take us out to break?
Yes, I just wanted to say to you, Sergeant Natalie, I wanted to thank you for coming on and giving us all of this great information. And I also wanted to say thank you for bringing in the word of God. And, I'm usually the one that tries to push a little bit of the word in here and talk about what the word says. And you just did it for me today. I just want to say thank you so much for, bringing the light and the Christian aspect of it and telling our people what God desires for us and that he doesn't want us in or anyone in abusive situations. I think those were very powerful points to get across on the air on today.
Yes, ma'am, and you were 100% right. God, like I said, God wants us to be His hands and feet. It's hard sometimes because like we were talking earlier, the flesh wants what the flesh wants, but you just got to turn that noise down on it and turn up more of the Bible, whether it's you meditating on God's word. I've had people tell me they're like, well, it's hard to talk to somebody that doesn't answer back. I'm like, but He does. You're just not listening. It was a long time for me. I was raised in a very Christian home. My parents suffered a lot to send me and my sister to private school, and I know there were plenty of times I've made the Lord turn away from me, but I'm so grateful that He loves me the way that He does. And like we were talking earlier, just so you all know, even as bad and as dark as my days were during that very hard time in my life, the Father God blessed me with a man, a husband, and a daughter. And that child, who's 7 years old, told me the other day she wanted to get baptized. And I told her, I said, Madeline, that's her name. I said, what makes you think you want to be baptized? And she told me, Mama, because it's what they do in the Bible. I wanted all my sins washed away. I said, okay. And I said, I don't think you're ready for that, though. You don't understand. And she said, no, Mama, I do. It means Jesus is going to, it's the symbolism of Him washing our sins away.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, keep it locked right here to Awesome Radio. We'll be back with our final 10 minutes after this brief message. Back in a moment, ladies and gentlemen.
The moon is on average 239,000 miles from Earth. It's just over a quarter the size of the Earth, and compared to its host planet, it is the largest proportionally of all of the moons in the solar system. Because of its size, the gravity of the moon creates tides, which help to circulate the warm and cold waters of the ocean. How did scientists originally determine the shape of the Earth? Lunar eclipses occur as the Earth passes between the sun and moon, giving us the opportunity to see the shadow of the spherical Earth cast on the moon. We can learn a lot by studying God's creation. There's no doubt that the moon is a unique object, carefully designed and created on the fourth day as a great light to rule the night. A calendar in the heavens for signs, seasons, days, and years. I'm David Reeves. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God.
For more information, visit David Reeves Ministries at davidreeves.com. DavidRives.com.
My name is Jayla, and you're to see to my papa, Glenn Johnson, on the radio.
Welcome back to Awesome Radio, ladies and gentlemen, to the Glenn Johnson Show. Motivations with Glenn and Apostle Jacqueline Cullins Williams. We have reached our final 10 minutes of today's broadcast, so I definitely want to go back and thank Sarge for tuning in with us today. But like I said, I want to change to my show form document so that we would be in compliance with the station and the FCC, the Federal Communication Commission. With that being said, before I give it over to my co-host, I'm going to ask Sarge if she would kindly give me a call once we leave the station. I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes, and Dr. Glenn, we're back over and we're getting ready. We're winding down on this clock for towards the end of our broadcast on today. I wanted to make sure that on today that we gave out some numbers for help. We don't want to just talk about domestic violence and not give you the equipment or give you the information that you need in case you are in trouble. If you are in trouble, try to seek help. Try to call. Try to get yourself out of that situation and do the best you can, but we want to leave and give some numbers out to you. And we have a paper here that says National Domestic Violence Hotline. It says help is available. And that number is 1-800-799-SAFE. That is 1-800-799-SAFE. And this is the Domestic Violence hotline. It's a 24-hour hotline. So, and it also, they do English and in Spanish. So they have interpretation, someone to interpret that if you speak Spanish. It's good to know where to go for help. Dr. Glenn?
And as always, should anyone need any of the documents that we have available in front of us, please don't hesitate to email me at Glenn, Glenn, Johnson Show at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to forward the documents to you.
There's also a live chat down now, and this is the hotline, and it's www.hotline.org. Again, it's www.thehotline.org, and it says that it's a live chat now. So I'm sure that if you are in trouble, they'll be able to talk to you. They'll be able to chat with you and get your circumstances and try to help you, because sometimes people are not able to say things out of their mouth, but they may be able to type or text a certain thing to be able to get help. Sergeant Natalie, would you like to give us some closing words on our broadcast on today?
Yes, ma'am. I just want everyone to know real quick that, you know, when you feel like you were at your darkest moment and you feel like there is nothing that can relieve the pain that you were in, I truly pray that you all will turn to the Lord, to Jesus, and not towards despair. God does not want anyone to hurt. And that person who's hurting you, regardless of how much they may tell you they love you, they can't understand love. If they think that hurting you is love, that is not. I'm here to tell you that's not. And when you truly believe in Jesus, God will reward you. He will reward your love. And the best part of all is you need to realize that when you're not listening to what he's telling you to do, if you feel him telling you to run, run, because you are missing out on the blessings he has intended for you.
That's
God
right.
is not a blessing. Hurt is not a blessing. Hurt is nothing but pain and a curse. God wants to bless his children. And if you believe in him, he will open up doors you did not even believe or could imagine existed.
And Apostle Williams just mentioned something about a young lady texting and got help. And that just occurred here last week in Bertie County. A young lady was able to text 911 and got the situation resolved. And they did rule it was a good thing because it was a domestic violence situation.
God bless her. God bless her.
Yeah, God bless her.
Yes, I'm so grateful that you guys have done this show. There's a lot of people who don't understand just how important it is, and they don't understand because they've never been through it. And if you've never been through it, it's hard to understand that mentality behind it, the mentality of being afraid. Well, I don't want to die, and I'm afraid if I call, I might. You know?
Yeah.
And law enforcement does, in my opinion, need to do a better job of making sure that they tell people, look, this may take some time. You have to be upfront and honest. If you're honest with people, you will get more help out of them. So for any law enforcement officer listening, I highly recommend that when you take a report, you look that person in the eye, and if you tell them you're going to be there for them, you better be there for them.
That's right.
Right? If you give them advice, you give them true advice. Treat them the same way you would want someone to treat your mother, your sister, your father, your brother, your grandparent, your child. Do for them like you would want others to do for you. If you do that, at the end of the day, you'll be able to sleep easy, because we do see some hard things in our lives and our careers. And God has definitely given you the ability to do this, do your job well.
I like how she said, and I just want to reiterate that certain things take time. That even coming out and being delivered from something or getting out of that situation, that even with getting out of it, even if an arrest is involved or whatever else, it still may take some time to get over that particular time and season in your life. And even when it's over, there still may be some time that you need time to be healed, delivered, and have your mind refreshed and renewed. So we want to say to all of those that have been in that situation, or maybe you're in that situation, don't allow anybody to rush you. Take your time and allow God to heal you, and he will do just that. Dr. Glenn?
Hey, we have 3 minutes to go before we end today's broadcast, so I definitely want to thank Sergeant Banda, for calling in and being a part of this broadcast today. That was very enlightening, very, very inspirational, and important information you just shared with us and our listening audience here throughout Pitt County and on the World Wide Web. So I really appreciate her being here today and joining us with this broadcast. A lot of great inspiration. Thank you, Sarge.
And thank you for having me. You both have a blessed day.
And please don't forget to call me. I'll be walking out the door in about 4 or 5 minutes. If you can call me on my cell phone, I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I sure will. Thank you.
Jackie, you want to end the broadcast with the last 2 minutes for some words?
Yes, I just want to say that in our time and season right now, we're seeing a lot of things in the media concerning domestic violence. There's a lot of videos that are streaming, and a lot of people that are seeing the images of domestic violence, especially in the Black community, and those concerning celebrities that are out there in the media. And I want to say to you that no matter who you are, no matter your income, no matter if people know your name or people don't know your name, you can escape, and you're worthy to be loved. You don't need to be in a situation where you're being hit, where you're being kicked, where you're being abused or verbally abused by anyone. And it doesn't matter how much money they have or how much money they don't have. You are entitled to be loved.
And I will say this, those of you that are part of the problem that's inflicting this of domestic abuse, you will be caught
and prosecuted
to the fullest extent of the law. I just want to make that clear. So if you are a part of the problem and not the solution, you will be dealt with.
Definitely. And we just want to say we have so many things that we didn't get to on today, Dr. Glenn, and it looks like we're going to have to do a part 3 because we have a lot of teaching on domestic violence in itself. We've given you quite a few good things today, and how and what it looks like, and also some of the consequences that the officer gave us and things that they look for when they go out to domestic violence calls. But we have much more information, so I'm going to say it right now. Come back next week. We're going to do a part 3 on domestic violence.
And I'll get back in touch with the Sarge. Maybe she can come on virtual with us so she'll be a part of the video broadcast that will be on GPAT Channel 23. So I'll make that happen once I talk to her over the phone or I'll send her another email. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in today, listening to this broadcast of great inspiration and importance. I definitely want to go back and thank Sarge for being here today and my co-host. And when we do part 3, perhaps Calvin Bostil will be able to join us for the veterans aspect of domestic violence. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, for part 3, I want to thank you for tuning in. Everybody have a safe day. God bless you. God loves you. Thank you for tuning in. Awesome Radio, WECU 107.5 FM. Thank you.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.